Welcome back to the Fear
and Beer podcast,
where we discuss all things Halloween Horror Nights, horror movies,
and just a little bit of beer.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Seamus.
Like scary movies.
Uh-huh.
Here's Johnny.
It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Did you miss me?
Aren't you drinking? I never drink. Why?
Before we get into tonight's episode, we want to remind all of those listening on Apple Podcasts to drop us a 5-star review. It helps us grow as a podcast and build our audience. If you're listening on Spotify or any other platform, follow us, and don't forget to share with friends and family who might have a little bit of the strange in them as well.
And while you're on those socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, be sure to find us, Fear and Beer Pod. Give us a like, share, and you can always message us. We love to interact with all you guys.
The season of love. Or the month of love, whatever, Valentine's Day. We figured we'd dive back into our Kill Review series, which we haven't really been playing with in a little while, and jump back into it with a movie ever so fitting, Bride of Chucky. Fitting on two different reasons. Obviously, one being the aforementioned Valentine's Day coming up. Bride of Chucky, very, very lovey-dovey story between these two youngs. But also because Chucky is going to be a familiar face coming up in August, September, October. Once Horror Nights rolls around, we're going to be seeing a lot of this little fucker. So we figured, why not? Let's dive into the series a little bit. We're diving into, I think,
we're going right into the we're going into this hard. Like, rather than doing like one of the 3 decent movies, we went into this one first. But hey, you know what? We got to fit a theme, don't we?
I guess. Jesus, I don't know why we did this to ourselves, but
hey,
a fun movie.
To be fair, this movie actually isn't as bad as like some of the movies we've decided to watch and review for this podcast.
No, this movie, they knew exactly what they were making when they made it. They decided to definitely take that change from the previous kind of, pseudo slasher, and they just said, we're straight comedy horror on this movie. This movie is 90 minutes of pure late 90s, early 2000s, just stigmas, stereotypes, and ridiculousness. So yeah, that's what we're getting into tonight is Bride of Chucky, directed by Ronnie Yu of Freddy vs. Jason fame.
This movie came out before that one though.
Yeah.
It was like,
yeah, this is 98.
98. Freddy vs. Jason was 2003, I think.
Yep. So a little bit of he's touched upon a lot of icons in the slasher realm at this point, because I'm sure we'll get into it, but there's a lot of little Easter eggs in that first minute and a half of this movie for some forsaken reason. But yeah, that's what we're going to be discussing. And tonight, what I'm going to be drinking. So if you're watching on YouTube, we are doing this remote again because again, I've got some stupid little cold kind of thing kicking around, and it was just easier to set this all up. Plus, I'm going out on vacation on Saturday, so I want to rest up as best as I can and give it out to as less people as possible. So figured just easier to stay in. So I had 2 of these cans for us tonight, but I think there's a way to tie this in. So what I have tonight is from Sideward Brewing Company. It's a little microbrew in Orlando, but it's called Work Friends. It's a porter. I figured that's so fitting for Chucky and Tiffany being little work buddies or work friends in this little murderous road trip combo that we're about to embark on.
They do get married, so like it is a real thing.
Yeah, it's legit.
This movie gets weird in a lot of ways,
Oh.
and I'm sure most of our listeners have seen this already. And if you haven't seen it yet, take the time and watch it, because it is kind of insane, but it does get really weird at certain points.
It is anything that you think could be ridiculous and like could happen in this movie. Let me tell you, it happens. So I'm gonna take a little sip of this beer and see what we're working with.
Yeah, good, because I'm not drinking beer tonight. I don't have any beer.
Yeah. Good. Very dark. I get a lot of that coffee taste. Good amount of malt in there too. I think it benefits from me picking it up this morning or this afternoon and cracking it within the day of buying it. So that definitely adds to it.
Well, it definitely,
Um,
yeah. It's
yeah,
not like some of the ones we've had where they've been sitting in the fridge for a little while. But
yeah. I'll buy like 20 beers at once. And be like, these will all work, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot we only do like one or two a
right.
week, and by the end of it, we're like, shit, this was a mistake. All right, so I'm gonna fire up the movie on my end, and we'll kind of talk along, and obviously I'll kind of tell you where we're at. But this is just so I don't remember even. I know I must have seen this at some point. I don't even remember when that was. So do you remember when you had first seen this movie? Has it been a while? Is this something you've
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I think I've seen it one time before today, so it's not like a movie that I go back to quite a bit, obviously,
no, yeah.
for various reasons, namely because the movie's insane. But I mean, I know I had seen it at least once, maybe twice. I've watched a lot of like specials or like some of those like documentary things you watch on services like Shutter or Netflix, and they kind of include clips from certain movies, and this is one that's always kind of referenced. I think partially because for what it is, a lot of the acting is pretty good. You completely forget the fact that Katherine Heigl's in this movie
For
until you
like
watch
4
it.
seconds.
Well, no,
It
she's in
doesn't
it. No, Katherine Heigl, she's in the movie for the most part. She's the blonde teenager.
Oh, yes. I was thinking of I forget the actress's name, but the one that plays the hotel like cleanup crew
Right, the
lady.
lady from the witch lady. Yeah.
Yeah, she was in like
So yeah,
I want to say
she's in
Rat
it too, and
Race,
that
but
was when like you're like, oh, because when that scene came up, was like, oh, nice little in joke there.
yeah,
I guess if that's what they were going for, but no, Katherine Heigl, who ends up going on to like Grey's Anatomy and
and Knocked Up,
Knocked
The
Up
Ugly
and a few other
Truth.
those movies, and I don't know what she's been in lately, but you forget that it's kind of like her Jennifer Aniston like horror movie. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like they all have to do one
yeah, yeah. They got one.
cheesy horror movie, and then they become huge stars.
Yeah,
Now, I mean, not to go off on a tangent, but now that I think of that, I forget the actor's name, but I happened to be at the dentist office the other day with my kids. They were all getting dentist work done, and they had Halloween Town like 3 or whatever on, and like the guy in it is the dude that's in American Horror Story. I'm
oh
telling you,
no, yeah.
all these actors and actresses, like they got to do their weird Halloween horror type thing, and then they get big, they get huge.
And speaking of actresses and stuff like that, Jennifer Tilly, coming into Bride of Chucky, she was 1 year out removed from being nominated for Best Supporting Actress for Oscars, for an Oscar for Bullets Over Broadway, which she did, thinking was
But you know what's
97
funny
or
though?
98.
She's like, but like, and I don't want to like skip ahead, but she really does do a good job in this movie for what it for what it is, what she's working with. Like,
Yeah,
she's
I
not
mean, she's
bad.
in love
Like
with the
she's
doll.
actually
Yeah,
well. She dives into the role. At least appears like she dives into the role and really takes it head on. And I've watched interviews with her, and she's she does have like fond, I don't want to say memories, but she enjoys this movie for what it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like she's not like ashamed of it. Like she's willing.
not
She'll talk
Jennifer
about it or
Aniston trying
whatever.
to buy up every
And
copy
now
of
I'm saying
Leprechaun
that.
and bury it.
Right. Well, right. Exactly.
Yeah, this Jennifer Tilly was nominated for Best Supporting Actress for Bullets Over Broadway in '94, and this came out in '98. So just a couple years removed from an Oscar nom to Bride of Chucky, which again, yeah, she does what she does for this movie, but it's Bride of Chucky. It's not an Oscar nom. But so the movie opens with this whatever police officer, a no name guy who just gets killed immediately in his own cop car for he steals the body of Chucky, which Child's Play have never been like my go-to movies, so I can't even tell you what happened at the end of
I
3, but
I think
I'm
that they
assuming he's all dead.
yeah, I
Or
think they make up a lot of this stuff for this movie because like they never mention the Jennifer Tilly character in any of the 3 movies, as far as I know.
no, but
Um,
supposedly she had been
she
dating
knew him before he became
Chucky
a doll.
before him. Yeah, so the intro part when he goes to get, and I just don't get this part. I get it, but I don't get it, and it drives me insane. So this obviously takes place somewhere in New York, and they're in the police station, and there's obviously Chucky is there because he bags them, tags them, and brings them to Tiffany. But there's a shot of a Michael Myers mask in a cage. There's a shot of a really shitty hockey mask, which is clearly supposed to be Jason, in a little locker. There's Freddy's glove in a locker. There's a chainsaw to represent Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
Oh
which
yeah, they knew what they were doing.
and it's just like, oh my
100%.
god, these are not. Why are these all in the same place? What is it? Ed and Lorraine's like closet for slashers. Like, oh, it's just so, oh, it's just so cringy at some points. But that's what we got with these late '90s, early 2000s, horrors. We then go to like Tiffany's little mobile home, I guess it is, and I'm curious if she became a crazy doll lady after her murderous boyfriend got turned into one, or if she was just like a creepy doll lady beforehand.
Probably she's just creepy beforehand, but I think she's become more obsessed because, she's obviously been following the cases. Did we already talk about how she killed the cop and everything?
So yeah, so she goes to
right.
pick him up and then just like
Right.
stabs the cop in the neck and walks away with Chucky's beat up body or whatever. She kind of puts them back together, and this is where we get that first like Frankenstein version of Chucky, where he's just like stapled up and all different parts or whatever, and it's the first one's obviously is more doll oriented, and this one where he's becoming more grotesque, I guess is what they're going for. They're doing the close-up shots of like her stapling it and sewing him shut. It's almost like it's supposed to be body horror, but it's doll horror.
Yeah, well, and I think it's funny is I think, and I mean, people are probably going to correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the costumes you see people dressing up as Chucky, or they have a lot of the like the cosplay type stuff. It's a lot of it's generally done after like the Chucky from this movie, like all the stitches and all messed up and the big eye and like, because I feel like this is like for a lot of at least for our generation, this is like the Chucky that we all remember, because again, like the Child's Play movies all came out when we were young kids for the most part, so it's like we didn't grow up with it as much, and like these ones that came out in the 90s, like we had kind of talked about on the previous episode a couple weeks ago, where we were like we had certain characters in the 90s. Not saying that Chucky is a 90s character, but this came out late 90s. We would have been like middle school, age, just getting into like some of this horror stuff, or we were in high school and we were looking back at some of the catalog from, the mid to late 90s. And this was one of the ones that, kind of just existed. So I don't know. A lot of these like Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, I don't know how many there were, but they obviously took a lot. So it's like
Bride, Seed, and then like Cult of Chucky, I believe it is, and then I think the remake and then the TV series. So I honestly couldn't tell you for certain that I've seen Child's Play 3 or the last two. I don't think I've seen Seed or Cult. And
if
even
I have,
one,
it's been a very long time because I don't remember them.
Yeah, no, and I'm sure if they're anything like this movie, they are forgotten as soon as I watch it. That's just, I mean, I'm sure I'll remember this one because I had to take some notes and pay a little bit more attention. But this is a forgettable movie if there's ever been one.
What's kind of funny is that like this series kind of went like Child's Play 1, 2, and 3, and then they did like the Bride of, Seed of, Cult of. Yeah. And now they've kind of like done like the remake or like the reimagining. The new TV show is kind of like a new take on the story. So it's not like it's all like following each other. So they kind of had like 3 eras almost for this character.
Because like it's the same character. I feel like these 3, Bride, Seed, and Cult, I could be wrong, but I feel like they take stuff. Obviously, they take the character and everything that happened, and it's just like loosely tied to it. So it's like the 6 they kind of go together, but they're very different movies. This new age.
Well, I think the first right, the Child's Play movies were trying to be taken a little bit more serious, as much as you can with a talking doll, but they were at least trying to be more like horrific, like a horror movie, whereas these movies are clearly like, we know what we're doing, totally tongue-in-cheek. Again, it has, and we'll kind of get to each one, but like it has that thing where you're rooting for the bad guy or the bad guys more than you're rooting for any other character in the show, in the movie. Whereas like the original Child's Play, obviously you feel for the little boy, you feel for his mother, you feel for like the characters that this homicidal maniac who happens to be in the body of a 3-foot tall doll. It's different. Like, it's kind of like it's like a lot like the Friday the 13th sequels, where like it started out, you're rooting for the characters, but then it like by movie 3 or 4, you're rooting for Jason at that point. It's kind of the same thing. And I think they knew that, and that's what they were lampooning that idea.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
Yeah, so
let's create all of the cops as terrible, awful people.
Yes.
So you don't actually root for them.
Yeah. Yep. So going back into the movie now, we're at the point now we've been introduced slightly to our characters, Jade and Jesse, and then their friend David, who David goes to pick up Jade at her house, pretending like they're taking her out for her dance or whatever, and because I guess her uncle is not too fond of Jesse. John Ritter, R.I.P. John Ritter.
That's true. I didn't think of that. Yeah.
John Ritter is obviously not fond of him, so he's the chief of police, and Jade leaves with David, and then they ride down the road and eventually are pulled over by this needle nose cop guy that they supposedly the uncle is paying off to follow his kids around or something like that to make sure that they're
he's the chief. He can
each other.
He can basically make his officers follow around whoever he wants to.
Yeah.
In that sense, but
so there's nothing going on in this town. There's not like this blonde Tiffany girl just murdering people to be on the watch for. But yeah, sure, just make sure we're keeping up with our niece or whatever, which is a backstory that I feel like we never get. Like maybe I completely missed it, but I don't remember particularly a moment in this movie where they pointed out why she's with her uncle who she hates. And
I think you're supposed to just assume that he adopted her because her parents died.
Yeah, and it's just She clearly hates the guy. It's not.
Oh yeah, and he clearly hates her too. It's so weird. It's
just, who knows?
I don't know. I feel like if you could have made him a little less insane and just slightly overbearing, but I think again that's what they're trying to go for. Is like we're not making these characters for you. Like you're not supposed to like this person, so we're gonna make him just the worst uncle ever.
Yeah.
Like when he's like, I don't care if you go to hell when you turn 18 or whatever. You're like, what?
Yeah. Oh man, and then we cut right back to Tiffany's doll trailer where she's opening up Voodoo for Dummies, because that's a real thing.
Again, yeah.
She's trying to summon Chucky back up. Apparently it didn't work, and then her friend, oh god, what is the character's name in this one? Damien.
Damien, yeah.
Damien,
which, again,
played by Alexis Arquette, again, R.I.P.
Another shout out to horror, Damien, the Omen. So
yeah, and I forget the last name they give this character, but it's just such a ridiculous. But he just the character is just this over the top, stereotypical. Like I feel like this is what people thought of during the 80s when you had like the satanic panic thing. They're like, oh, look at this character and how they're dressed. They're so evil and they're and the Alexis Arquette comes in with a picture of clearly herself with this bloody whatever trying to impress Tiffany, saying that they had murdered this person, and then Tiffany's like, wait, I noticed those tattoos. So I guess,
which by the way, worst tattoos in movie history.
Oh god, it's terrible. It's so just but that's like late 90s, early 2000s, where it's just like tight leather pants. It reminds me of the guy from like School of Rock, where he's just like the guy that replaces Jack Black on guitar, who's got like his shirt is just sleeves and collar. It's just the most ridiculous get up ever. But supposedly this Damien Black is like serial killer in training or something. Like Tiffany's trying to.
He's trying to impress her, I think, and he knows that she's like obsessed with serial killers and shit. So I don't think it's like he's actually killing people or trying to.
Oh no, he's definitely not. But I guess that's their way to Tiffany's heart or whatever. So it just, oh boy, does this night go horribly wrong for them. So Chucky is now mysteriously gone from the little sand. Like Satan, I don't even know what the.
Oh, well, she had a pentagram on the ground.
Pentagram, yeah, the sand pentagram. Chucky's gone, and they're the two of them are clearly have been talking to each other for a while, and Alexis Arquette wants to get this relationship physical, which it clearly has not. They make their way to the bedroom, in which we are now introduced to Chucky, who is not completely active yet, but Tiffany does sit him on Alexis's lap after handcuffing them to the bed, and they begin to insult Chucky a little bit. And this is when I think he says the doll doesn't have the he says something along the lines of like the doll doesn't have the size to pleasure you or something like that. And that's when Chucky emerges, and he does the exorcist style head spin, turns around to him and lets him know that it's not the size, it's the motion or something like that. Oh my god,
That's how you use it. It's not the size,
how you
how you
use
use
it.
it.
Jesus Christ, Chucky, you're like a 3-inch tall like plastic
I
doll.
mean, hey, good on them to get Brad Dourif back, because Brad Dourif makes that character work. So the fact that he's like, yeah, I'll come back and do it. It's a paycheck.
And I think I saw somewhere that this was, I think he is well renowned on this one. This is one of his favorite version, like his favorite in the series. It's definitely the most fun up until this point, I'm sure.
That doesn't surprise me, because like if you think about it, I mean the concept of a living doll is kind of absurd in itself, and not that like horror isn't just based on the absurd, and that's kind of where it comes from. But I feel like that, he got to just have some fun with it. You know what I mean? He didn't have to be so serious, so like evil. Like he's obviously evil, but like the lines were he could have one liners. It was funnier. It was better. It wasn't just like him being an awful thing. Like a lot of obviously a lot of the lines were really threatening, really like to the point and serious, or at least trying to be serious in the Child's Play movies. But with these ones, he can just be kind of just a goofball, and it works out. So I can imagine him enjoying this movie more than maybe the other ones. But
oh yeah, like we mentioned, it's just it's hard to take. I mean, this horror comedy thing is where a movie like Chucky belongs. You can't make a movie like this and be serious. It's the foul mouth, ridiculous puppeteering, over the top, gory. We're at the scene now where once Chucky has come alive, he rips Alexis's lip ring out, and it's just
I know, it's so good. There's so much blood. Nobody's lip ring bleeds like that.
And he sits on the pillow and suffocates him. Like Chucky weighs like 300 pounds or something. I know his hands, the character's hands are handcuffed, but Chucky is a doll. It does not weigh that much to it's just, but with these movies, you have to embrace it. And that's what I'm kind of glad that this movie did. Just they didn't try and take it serious. They just said, we've seen these movies before. We're starting anew. This is going to be, the ridiculous Chucky. We're going to go, head on into this. So that's just, I mean, what a start. I mean, we're about 20 minutes into this hour and a half movie, and that's where we're left up. So we get back to the scene. The kids that whatever they call them, needle face or needle nose or something like that.
Yeah, nose.
They're pulled over, and he's giving them all breathalyzers, and then obviously the uncle comes around and takes her home, and we kind of can see where this storyline's going to go. It's the bad boy doesn't can't get the girl or whatever, and it's just such a useless storyline. We get back to Tiffany's little mobile home, which seems a lot bigger from the inside. I don't know how spacious it is. It looked like it's an
also
Airstream
really
on the
nice.
outside.
If it's supposed to be like some rundown like trailer park, and she's in like a brand new beautiful Airstream. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then isn't she lives like next door to the boyfriend?
Yes, yeah. So the kid also lives in the,
which we'll get
park.
Yeah, I don't think we're
for
at that
story
point
reasons,
yet,
I guess. Yeah, just strictly for story reasons. Chucky and Tiffany are clearly having it out. Tiffany is pretty hell bent on, she's been waiting for him, knowing that Chucky would be back, something like that. Chucky previously, before being turned into a puppet, we find out murdered somebody, stole their ring, and the ring was on the nightstand, something along those lines. And Tiffany took that as an engagement of sorts. And then obviously Chucky turned into a doll, so that never saw through. But she didn't know that until this point, where Chucky is like, "Oh, I can't believe you thought that I wanted to marry you. This is ridiculous." So she has second thoughts, and then puts him in a crib. She had a crib set up for him,
Yeah,
apparently.
a little baby crib.
A baby crib jail, which, I mean, he does get out of, but seemingly it took him a lot longer than I thought it should take him to get out of this little wooden crate.
Yeah, if you're gonna
thing.
have him break out of it, why does he sit in there for like a day? Like,
Yeah,
like he obviously could do it beforehand. So
he's this murderous doll, and yet he can't get out. Now, the one scene that I immediately was like, "Oh, this is going to be a continuity error," was after she puts him into the little baby crate or whatever. She goes to go back into bed, and it didn't show the bed at first. It showed like her walking towards the bedroom and stuff like that. I was like, oh God, they're just going to completely not mention that Alexis Arquette was just murdered there. But no, they actually did. So they have Damien still in the bed, still chained up,
right,
looking pretty dead. But I was 100%
and
waiting
she like
for it to
shoves
be
him
like,
overwards and he grabs
yeah,
like
it's
a
almost
bloody
like she's
pillow.
like cuddling on the side of it. But I was 100% set. I was like, there's no way this movie is gonna remember the fact that they just murdered off a character in the next room in the next.
No, but I
scene.
think that's what like gives this movie its charm. Like, is like, again, like it's goofy, but they know that. Like, they're not gonna
Yes.
like just like they're not gonna intentionally leave out stuff that like you just said, like a continuity error or anything like that. Like, there may be some things, but they know exactly what they were doing with it. So they were like, yeah, we're gonna have her like lay in bed next to the dead body and like act like it's not there.
Yeah. So then it goes to the next morning, and this is where we find out that Tiffany is in the same little trailer park area that Jesse is, and Tiffany's sitting on this big giant not even a briefcase, it's like a trunk case that's got
Yeah, like a I don't know what you would call it, but like it's like an actual like old timey trunk, like
which
like a
there's no way that
ridiculous
thing fits.
trunk that wouldn't fit
Where
in the
would you have
trailer.
this in your little trailer? But sure. That's where she places I keep forgetting the character's name. Oh, Damien. Damien's body is in there, and she's like, "Hey, can you help me out and move this into my car?" It's like, again, there's no way this is fitting into a car. And then lo and behold, it doesn't. She just kind of straps it in and stuff like that. But and then you hear Chucky yelling from the trailer, like,
Right.
"Oh, who the fuck is that?" or "What the fuck are you doing?" It's like, "Oh, just babysitting a foul-mouthed little fucker." It's like, oh God, who are you babysitting? Who would let you babysit? There's no chance. And why are you wearing this like New York style gala dress while you're sitting outside smoking on top of a trunk? It's just, there's so many questions. But she's asking him essentially at first, she's asking him, kind of implying to hook up or whatever. But he says that he has a girlfriend. It is a cute little line. She says, "Why are all the good guys taken?"
Yeah. Yep.
Just gotta sneak that one in there. But she goes on this tangent again, and she says this a handful of times, and I'm not sure like why they felt the need to include this 13 times, but she keeps bringing up like sayings that her mother told her as a kid. It doesn't really go anywhere in the story. It's just her like killing time with the script. I mean, for 90 minutes they got to make something work, but I feel like for every situation that we go through in this movie, there's a she says, "Oh, well, just like my mother used to say."
I think it's
like,
just supposed to be like a running gag. Like, I don't think it's supposed to go anywhere. You're supposed to just be like, this is another ridiculous thing happening.
Yeah.
But then again, she also kind of has that character where she would have a crazy mom who had like a whole bunch of like old wives' tales or old wives' sayings or something.
Yeah.
So it kind of fits.
Yeah. The next scene, we're finally introduced to the bride. Tiffany must have gone out and purchased this creepy doll-like thing, but she comes in with a big present for Chucky and places
It just happens to be the same size as Chucky and looks just like him.
because sure, what places I mean, what I don't know. You have girls. I'm sure they have dolls. Are there not life size, but 3-foot bride dolls that say
No,
like
no, they don't.
bride sayings?
No, they don't.
Okay, all
Not that
right.
I know of.
I
Not
was
that I
just
know of.
checking. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't crazy. So she places the little doll in there, and he is not too happy. She even goes as far to throw rice in their face. But her downfall is that the little doll has like a little ring necklace thing or whatever. So Chucky sees that as his way out. He takes the little necklace and starts shaving down the wooden crib while Tiffany jumps into the bath for a nice little smoke and break. Again, inside of a trailer with a full ceramic tub. Sure, because there's room in there for
As you
that.
do.
Yes, yeah, of course. Because why wouldn't you? She's watching TV, and there's a police bulletin for the Robert Bailey murder victim, which was the cop from the beginning, and then now a murder of Damien Balak, which they give the character like another Inside World joke name, and they show his name is also AKA Howard Fitzwater, and it's like nerdy glasses and stuff like that. It's like maybe Tiffany transformed this person into this murderous another backstory we don't ever get an answer to. Just another like random lead up that sure is why not.
You're asking for too much, man.
Yeah, I mean something. So Chucky's whittling away at this little thing, and then Tiffany starts putting on Bride of Frankenstein because of course,
Oh, it's
why
supposed
wouldn't
to
it?
be like a reference.
Yep. So that's what we're getting.
Hey,
Chucky
all
starts.
you monster fans, all you Bride of Frankenstein fans.
There you are, Boris Karloff in the flesh,
Yeah.
who actually I think is credited in this movie. Just like I don't know if they
Well, I mean,
technically had to, but if
they
I
do.
was
They
them, I wouldn't
do.
want my name associated.
I would think so, just because they actually like make a point to focus on his character for even for 5 seconds or whatever. Like that, I think that's enough to probably require some sort of credit to him. I mean, I think he had long passed at this point, but like,
Oh, I'm sure.
I think you had to credit him. I think the
Yeah.
studio probably would have had a problem if they didn't. But this is also a Universal movie too, so
Correct. Yeah.
they didn't probably need to necessarily do that. But I don't know. Maybe they just did it because, hey, we're gonna shout out at the legends or whatever.
Yeah. So as she's watching that, Chucky starts walking towards her with the knife, bringing the bride doll for some reason because Chucky is the master of voodoo apparently. He pushes the TV into Tiffany's bathtub, obviously electrocuting her, shooting water everywhere, and somehow, I mean, I know she was taking a bubble bath, but now there's like actual bubbles just floating around, and Chucky's laughing and playing with bubbles. For someone that was like not wanting to be with Tiffany, it is surprising to me that he decides to perform this voodoo and transform her into like a little doll that is forced to be with him for eternity now. It's like he cursed himself.
I think he was doing it more so to just spite her. It's like, now you're a doll too, bitch, like that type of thing. I don't think it was like he wants to be hanging out with her for the rest of eternity, but it's like, well, you wanted to marry me, now we're the same thing.
Yeah. This is where we Chucky and now Tiffany, who's in doll form, are having a discussion, kind of digging into the backstory of Child's Play 1, saying that when he was gunned down in the Chicago toy store, he had this amulet that
because he tells her to like look in the book or whatever and what page to look at, and it goes to the amulet, and he's like, oh yeah, well, they killed me in Chicago with that on, they buried me with it.
Yeah, so we need to go back, and his body's in
Hackensack, New Jersey. He was killed in Chicago, and his body is buried in Hackensack,
New Jersey. Because that's
because as you do.
So yeah, we're let's see, what part are we at? Oh, sneezing break.
Bless you.
This sucks. All right. So now they're discussing, which is even more funny, that they need to discuss transportation because they need to get to his body. And he could have, I mean, Tiffany wasn't really on his side per se, but he just turned the only person that knew he was like a talking doll into a doll who can no longer drive. So now they have to solve the problem of transportation. So Jennifer Tilly calls up Jesse, the trailer park neighbor
Your
that she
trailer
was
park
trying to
boyfriend.
bang. Yeah. Calls her up and convinces her that she has 2 dolls that she needs him to ship, and she's going to give him $1,000, $500 up front, $500 later on, and he agrees to
He
this.
haggled for that, all right.
And
She
he
was going to give
haggled
him
for the
500,
extra
and he was like, "I'll do it for 1,000."
$1,000 to mail 2 dolls. Jesus Christ, it's like, and oh my god, $1,000. Yeah, I mean, I would too, but like when
The fact
somebody
that
says
she
yes to
agreed
that,
to
you
too.
have to. Yeah,
He's like, "I'll give you 500 now and 500 later."
if
It's
someone
so
says
weird.
yes to that, then you have to really look into what they're up to, because something is not adding up. So we're now at the scene where the bride is becoming the goth bride, and she's adding the black makeup. She found somehow, I mean, I guess because she is a doll aficionado, she's got little doll Doc Martens. She has a little doll Tiffany necklace. She has a little doll leather jacket. She has cigarettes that are the same size proportionally to the doll, so I'd assume they'd be small for humans. I don't know. This is just a
I
whole
don't
bunch
I
of
don't I don't
nonsense.
question that, because I feel like being a weirdo who obsesses over the doll stuff, like she would have all of that
Yeah.
stuff for a doll. I don't know why I don't know why I think that, but I just feel like that's something that would just be kind of laying around.
So yeah, we're at the part now. Jesse is is picking up the dolls, and I think you were mentioning that he didn't go too far into the bedroom where
Yeah, because
the
I would assume that her body is still in the tub, right?
yeah, they
I
didn't
mean,
do
I don't
any
think they
sort
do
of
anything with it.
cleanup. No cleanup. There's just the 2 super creepy dolls sitting there with a little note that says Jesse, and it's got 500 cash. Um, so he takes them, and then we're cutting to a scene now where we're back with Jade, and I think the kid's name is, oh, it's not David. Yeah, David. I keep messing up David and Damien. They couldn't pick better names. But they're outside of her house, where Jesse now comes to pick her up. And I'm not sure what David was even doing there in the first place, but they're the Bride of Chucky and Chucky are now embarking on their little road trip movie that we've just been so dearly waiting, which is just crazy. This is essentially like, if you had me put a subgenre, I mean, this is like a like a road trip
It
movie.
is. It's a road trip movie or a buddy comedy almost in a way.
But this, out of all the things that I think are unrealistic, this might be the most unrealistic, where this kid, Jesse, thinks that the 500 or the $1,000 that he's getting is enough to start a new life. He honestly thinks that on this $1,000, these
Hey,
2
it
high
was the
schoolers
90s.
can move away and just start a new life.
It
Or
is
get
the
a
way.
job at some point.
So this is like one of the few things that I actually have like a real problem with in this movie is that like we don't know. Like, we're assuming that they're high schoolers, that they go to high school, because he did make her uncle made the comment that she's not 18 yet, so she's obviously like what, 16 or 17. I would have to imagine
Yeah.
she's gonna run off at like 16 or 17 with this weird trailer park kid who I guess lives on his own but is still old enough to go to high school, like young enough to go to high school. Or is
Yeah.
he some weirdo, creepy, somewhat like it's really weird. It opens up a lot of questions that I don't think people wanted to answer. Like there's so many
Yeah.
things in this movie that like you could never do today. You know what I mean?
No.
Like
Well, and
it's
it's
just
like they don't answer any of the questions either. So it's like, is it wrong? I mean, maybe.
it's
We don't
weird.
know. I mean, so is this kid living by himself in the trailer park? Is he old enough to live by himself? Or does he have
I
a weird
guess,
family
yeah,
situation where he
I
was
guess so.
abandoned? Who fucking knows? But yeah, this is just, again, the most, it's just, we got to look past these parts, I guess, because I'm looking back into these things way too much than I need to. So the 2 of them kind of run off, where the uncle now sees the van and goes to investigate. And inside the van, he finds Chucky and Tiffany, who notice that, oh, this guy's gonna ruin our whole plan. We got to do something. He's gonna, these two are our way out. They're our meal ticket essentially. So they come up with this Final Destination-esque kill where it looks like in the AC vent they just put a bunch of nails.
Is that what that was? I thought it was I thought they
Or-
set off like what do you call it? The
a
airbag.
firecracker? Oh, maybe. Oh no, because it
I did.
maybe it's an airbag,
That's just,
but then
but again, that could just be me washing out of the corner of my eye. I may have looked away and I just thought it was the airbag. I don't know.
it could. Let me cue this one up because I'm kind of skimping through the movie, kind of frame by frame, and piecing it together from the last day and a half that I watched it. But I know they kind of. Oh no, it wasn't the airbag.
It was an airbag, right?
It was the airbag, which I didn't notice because that's another thing that these, not only are these very inventive murderers, they are quite the cleaning crew. They can
But
they
like
can put this thing in tip top shape in no time.
Jesse and the girl, they get back in the van and they keep driving and they don't notice that the airbag went off.
Well, that's my thing. It's like, so not only do they clean up all, so Jesse and them walk out of the house. And from the time of walking out the house to getting there, Chucky and Tiffany have a conversation. They move the body, they clean all the blood, and then they had to have moved the airbag to some point, and then cleaned up any miscellaneous nails that may have not hit this character square in the face. But here we go, Tiffany the puppet just scrubbing away because it did show a quick little shot of Chucky shoving the airbag back in.
Okay. All right.
But I don't think that's how
Don't
you
at
really
me.
reset the airbag.
I just feel like you would still notice that. I feel like it's something that like is easily recognizable when you get back into your own vehicle and you notice that. Why does that look like that went off?
I am about 100% confident that if I left my vehicle and came back 5 minutes later, if somebody had been murdered in my car, I would know. I'd figure it out. Not only was somebody murdered, but there was a lot of blood and there was nails and the airbag went off. And yeah, there's just a lot of things that don't add up.
I guess the question would be are we looking into this way too much?
Absolutely we are. And that's kind of what we got to do right now. So we go to the next little stop. I guess they're stopping for whatever reason, some food maybe before they hit the road. They're going.
They went to
one
the gas station thing or whatever.
Yeah, it's like a food truck gas station party kind of thing. And this is where the little needle nose character comes back again, and is giving them a hard time once again. And here comes the young white teenager girl, and she punches the cop in the face or slaps him or whatever, and then totally just gets away with it. Just they like the Jesse's like, don't worry, I'll smooth this over, go get food. Like, no, she would have been thrown on the ground, handcuffed. Like, just no. This is oh god. So then apparently he had some weed in the van, and Chucky and Tiffany are now smoking the weed. But the needle nose guy now is obviously going to be tearing through this place to try and figure something out to pin these two. So they're looking around, and obviously the body of the cop is in there. So when Chucky and Tiffany are sitting there, he goes to look where the body is, and instead Chucky throws the little bag of weed. So that kind of gets him out of the van a little bit. So, maybe a little weed possession versus murder. But man, this cop, needle nose guy, throws Jesus, just watching it back is ridiculous, but he throws Jesse onto the hood like he found 20 pounds of coke. It was like a tiny little like baggie of weed. But
I know that part made no sense either, because like if they're trying to not not be interrupted by people so they can get to New Jersey, why is he throwing the weed where the cop can find it?
The only thing I did was I think it was because he was starting to search around where the body was.
Oh,
so it was like
maybe
the best of worst case scenarios.
Okay, I got you. Yeah.
So he goes back into his car to kind of call it off, and this is where Chucky and Tiffany are like, "Oh shit, we got to solve this." So you get a little shot of Chucky's puppet ass just kind of crawling across with a a big flannel shirt, and he sticks it into the gas tank. But this is a real I love this shot. I don't know why, but it's a shot from inside the gas tank, and it just shows Chucky's eye like looking into it. Stupid, useless little shot, but I'm in for it. So Chucky puts the shirt into the gas of the police station, the gas God, why can't I think of it? The name of it.
The gas station's name?
No. I'm gonna sound like an idiot. Where you put the gas in the car.
The gas tank?
Yeah, the gas tank. I just couldn't think of it. Oh God.
I don't know, because there could be some like random technical name that I'm not aware of either.
It's more.
The
It's
nozzle?
it's better than gas thing. He puts a shirt in the gas tank and lights the shirt on fire. And
Well, we have to mention the dude in the car
smoking
weed, and he sees him walk by, and Chucky flips him off, and he's like, "Whoa, man, is this not with a doll or whatever?"
Doll.
Yeah.
This is like, oh my God. It's like whoever wrote this just never smoked weed. So the cop starts noticing. He's like, oh, wait, I smell something. And then we get that giant explosion.
It's so good. The practical explosions in this movie are amazing.
I mean,
because they do it like twice.
Yeah, the car explodes twice. A kid on a payphone is like thrown out of it because the sign falls. Like a piece of the car flies onto the stoner's car. Like just evaporates everything. Jesse and Jade now rush into the car and try and take off, and some ladies and I don't get this part. Maybe this lady was a bystander and she was watching the whole interaction, but as they're driving away, the lady's like, that's them, that was them. It's like, how do you neither of them did this, so like you can't say you saw this, because if you saw anybody do it, you would have seen Chucky do it. I mean, I guess that was them being arrested, but to go to the point the finger that they blew up a cop car, it's a little much there, lady. So they peel off. They get out of there, and they're starting to kind of whip down the road. And this is where the conversation goes. Neither of them were with the other one when this happened, so they sort of start questioning each other, almost like a paranoia aspect of like, well, did you do it? Like, I didn't do. Did you do? And like, no, I can't believe you'd ask me if I would do that. Blah blah blah. And then Chucky and Tiffany get a little chuckle out of that. Now we cut back to David's character, who's watching TV, and supposedly now they're saying this is a big serial killer thing, Thelma and Louise style. These two kids are on the run, just murdering everybody, because now there's stuff that's starting to line up. I think there was the lighter that Chucky had used was the lighter from the cop that was killed earlier, or something along those lines. So now all the murders are starting to get put together, and it's looking like them. But I believe at one point they mentioned that Charles Lee Ray's prints were identified.
Right. So what you're saying is that his actual fingerprints are on the doll.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, granted, we're not there yet, but there's a lot of things that, like, apparently the dolls are more human-like than we realize. It's really weird.
Yep.
But then again, hey, you know what? Props to Wu, whatever his name is. Where they went with this movie, like planting seeds, man. Like, they're planting things where it's like, oh, maybe they actually are more doll like
planting seeds. Yeah,
well, that happens too. But my point is that like as silly as it is, at least it's like establishing like logic that not logic, but you know what I'm saying. It's establishing the point that, hey, maybe these dolls are more than just dolls.
Yeah.
So like if you think about it that way, it makes the scenes to come soon.
It makes a little bit more
wrong.
sense.
I should not have used that pun. For those scenes that that eventually get here, I guess it makes it make more sense in the sense that, like, oh well, maybe I could see that happening then if he's got fingerprints. Like, I don't know. Yeah. You're right that they do establish that, hey, we found Charles Lee Ray prints at the crime scene or whatever. And you're like, wait, what? Yeah. He hasn't been Charles Lee Ray since like the 80s.
Well, that's my thing too, is like, I guess the only people seeing this movie are obviously Child's Play fans, but this is a different
Yes
decade.
and no.
It's
I
a
feel like
different
it
generation.
may
So
have been like the first Chucky movie for a lot of people.
yes, so, which to my point is like that name of Charles Lee Ray. I mean, I guess they mention it in passing when they're going over the newspaper clippings of Tiffany's trailer, but the majority of people wouldn't be like, oh, Charles Lee Ray, that was the guy who got killed. His body is now in Chucky. That's Chucky. Charles Lee Ray is Chucky. No, they're just like, who the fuck is Charles Lee Ray? Like this doesn't make any
Right.
sense. And now for whatever reason, they drive to Niagara Falls. So I don't know where in New York they are, but they go from
Yeah,
New
this is
York
weird. They do. They
to
kind of go.
Niagara Falls to go to Jersey, which is
Do
south.
we know where
Niagara
they
Falls is
start? Like, where
very
do they
north.
start? Like, where
I
does this
don't think
movie?
they
This movie
mention it.
start. I don't think they ever say like where this movie starts, like where they're coming from.
So maybe it's very north. Maybe they're by Niagara Falls, but they stop there to get married. Like
They do. They do because he asks her, "Do you trust me? Will you get married or whatever? Will you marry me?" And then they stop to get married in a random church that does like
drive-by marriages.
elope drive-by marriage. Like it's like Vegas or something.
Yeah. Oh Jesus. I mean, I know that's a thing, but like to just randomly throw that in at the 50
I mean,
minute
it's a
mark of this
thing, but
movie.
like it's not a thing at the same time.
No. Especially for I guess is there a legal age of marriage? Like she
I
said
think
that she's under 18, so like can she
no, I know
legally
that. So I don't know the actual rules. I would assume that there has to be some age limit on getting legally married, but then again, we don't know what's legally married in this particular sense or not. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's a movie. We
Yeah.
get it. We're looking way too much into a movie, but it
Yeah.
just pulling out the absurdities of it. That's what this is. It's absurd.
So they stay the night at this honeymoon style place where they get married and get to stay, but not before we get the character of what's his name, Chief Warren, who jumps back out of the box with nails all in his face.
Oh yeah,
because he is not dead. Apparently, he's just been sleeping. He crawls out and he sees that it's the dolls, and Chucky actually kills him this time again. So even more blood. So while Chucky is simultaneously stabbing and murdering Chief Warren, his niece is inside getting married with shots that just get closer and closer and closer to their eyes. Like, I guess they're trying to build suspense, but it's just so like ridiculous. It's like dun, dun, dun. And every time they like get closer and closer and closer, because they have a shot of her, it's like from chin to forehead. Then they jump to like just the eyes. And then they jump to even closer on the eyes where it's like all out of focus. It's just like
it is a
the
weird
most
scene.
intense
It's a very weird scene
ever.
And I
where
don't know if
nothing
it's
is
like
happening.
if what they're trying to do is like compare the two human characters who are apparently getting married at 16, but getting married,
Yeah.
and it's almost like Chucky and Tiff are having the same moment in a way. Like
Yeah.
the act of killing this dude is like
Yeah.
bringing them together in like some cosmic marriage type thing. It's weird. It's really weird. But then again, I get that feeling when I watch that scene because it's like the music, like the score at that point, and like you said, like getting really close to the characters' faces back and forth, and the sharp cuts and stuff. But I don't know. It's
Yeah,
a weird.
so-
It's really weird. This movie movie starts weird, but it gets like progressively weirder. as
It
on.
goes off the rails, and I
It's
think
completely
we're just
off the
about
rails.
that part.
But I think it
So we go
starts
to-
off the rails. I don't think it's ever on the rails.
No, this movie has never been on the rails. So we get to the honeymoon suites, which they bring the dolls inside. Like, I wouldn't. Why? I mean, to their knowledge at this point, these are just two dolls they have to bring to New Jersey. I don't necessarily think that would be an item that I would bring inside from the van. I would just think it's, nonsense and just leave it. But they're watching the Channel 8 news, and they're kind of discussing the fact that now another person is missing, and all things are pointing towards Jesse and Jade as these killers. And all of a sudden, like, this other couple comes rushing into the room. This lady in like white boas and like silver lingerie, and this other guy comes rushing in after in his boxers. So apparently they double booked the honeymoon suite with the waterbed. So I guess multiple people are out getting married on this random night in Niagara Falls. Who knows? They pick up the dolls. They start talking about them. They're lovely, all this and that. The two people that rushed in get the little honeymoon suite, but the dolls stay there, I guess, which ends in yet another Final Destination style wedding, or not wedding, murder. So the two are on the waterbed. God, I can't even. They're on the waterbed, and Tiffany must have a fucking cannon. She should go out for like MLB or something because she whips this bottle.
I didn't quite understand this scene. Like, is she above them, or is she just in a reflection? Like, they can see her reflection in like the mirror above there. Like, I didn't understand what was going on. It's so hard to follow what's happening in this movie.
Yeah, so she's on the floor, and the mirror is on the ceiling.
Right. So she breaks the mirror, right? And
so
the mirror
she whips
shards.
the bottle at the mirror above them, so the glass shatters and falls towards them, which, if this movie was made today, would have been the most 3D scene I've ever seen. But it starts like raining shards of glass, popping the bed, blowing it up, and it looks like a scene from Jaws. Like, the freeze frame I'm on right now is water is exploding. Like, you would think that this glass was like the glass from Breaking Bad, where Walter like turned like, meth crystals into like this explosive where it just completely obliterates everything and like within 5 feet. No, this was like pieces of glass falling down onto a bed. If I broke a piece of glass and dropped on my bed, it would just bounce and sit there. No, this blew up an entire bed with people and impaled them. So they're standing there laughing, watching the blood water kind of go down through the whole floor, and out floats a little finger with a ring on it because the glass falling from 10 feet had enough speed to chop a finger off clean. But Chucky picks it up, takes the ring off, proposes, and this is where we get which I thought Team America had the first puppet sex scene, but I was wrong. This is where Chucky and Tiffany sealed the deal on their marriage, where we learn that Chucky is anatomically correct where it counts.
Yeah, apparently they both are.
Yeah. So,
but we have to give them props when like she starts crying and there's actual tears, and they establish the fact that like, okay,
yeah.
Apparently these things actually have like
this
human bodily functions. It's stupid. Yeah. Like, it's done in a stupid way, but at least they're establishing the idea that it could work. And just have them like
from tears. It did come from tears. He's like, does everything else work too? He's like, yeah, for me it does. Like, sure. I guess those are the rules of evil voodoo doll.
See, this is why Brad Dourif likes this movie the most, because he actually gets to have doll sex.
Right. Apparently this scene was like thrown in pretty last minute. Like,
that doesn't surprise me at all. Someone was like, hey, you want to be a funny idea? If the doll's fucked, and like,
right, just and like hilarious,
and someone was like, "That man's a genius. Make it happen."
Yeah, so we get that scene, and now another little fun scene. It's like a little phone tag situation where
a little fun scene.
Jade is calling Jade is calling David from back home, saying she thinks Jesse is the murderer. And then all of a sudden,
I like this scene.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden David gets another call, and on the other line is Jesse saying, I think Jade's the killer. To which he's like, you know what? Let me just come meet you. So like maybe they live close to Niagara Falls and like they just didn't make it far. Like and it's not like that far out of reach for him to come up there, but I mean I don't think I'd be putting myself anywhere near the situation if I had to. This is just where it starts to get really Final Destination-y in a second. So they're now.
I definitely feel like when did the first Final Destination movie come out?
Oh, that's a great.
Was it after this movie? Because the thing is like I feel like it's almost like they were carping some of those types of things.
So it did come out after Final Destination 1 was 2000.
Oh, okay. All right. So maybe
So,
Final
like, Final
Destination.
Destination is very Bride of Chucky.
Yeah, I guess so.
They're all five of them now. I'm including the two dolls are on the road down the highway, kind of discussing this and trying to figure out like what is going on. At which point, David lets them know that Chief Warren, Jade's uncle, has been missing as well. Which another weird part where she's like, "Oh my god, no!" It's like, okay, that doesn't really fit your character because your character hates this person. So, I mean, I don't necessarily know you'd wish him bodily harm, but like, I don't think your reaction would have been of fear that something is
Well,
wrong. Your
especially
character would have been like, good, fuck that guy.
especially considering he literally just told her like, I don't care if you die after you turn 18. Like, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like he was such a shitbag. Like I feel like she'd be like happy. Her reaction
Yeah,
would have been better if it was just like, oh well, sucks to be him or whatever. Something stupid like that.
exactly. Which
Because she's
also would have
16.
helped. Yeah, which
Or
also would
I
have
mean,
helped.
who knows
Like,
how old she is, but you know what I'm saying.
yeah, but it also would have helped that character arc of like this character David questioning if she's the murderer or not. It would
Yeah,
have
I
added a
don't
little
get
bit
it.
of more like intrigue. But again, Bride of Chucky. We're not. This isn't going to the Oscars or nothing. So David is walking around the back of the car. He's like, man, it smells really bad in here. And he starts looking around. He sees a pool of blood, and he opens the little like seat. I guess is where they hid the body of the sheriff, Chief Warren. That's where Chucky and them put him. So he sees that, and he's like, oh shit. He notices that there's a gun, so he grabs the gun off the chief and kind of plays it cool, like he didn't see anything. And then he finally pulls a gun on Jade and Jesse. Is like, okay, that's it. Pull over. This is, he's here. He's dead. Clearly you guys are the killer. Stuff like that. And then he gets out of the car. He gets out of this. I just can't even get through the scene. He gets out of the car. A police officer sees him and like swirls around. At which point, Chucky and Tiffany now pull guns on all three of them. Because I
Yeah, the
don't know
guns kind
where.
of came out of nowhere. Like, where did the
Yeah, I
guns come
don't know
from?
where. Like, I get David taking the one gun off of the chief. I understand that, but Tiffany has her own like little gun. Is that like part? Maybe that's part of like the doll voodoo magic. Maybe she had like a doll gun, and when she's touched it, it became a real gun. I don't know. It's just
Right, I don't
I
get it either.
sure, but they pull the guns on them, tell them to get back in. David then is like terrified, so he steps out into traffic and just gets completely evaporated by an 18-wheeler. Like not like mangled, damaged, evaporated. There's just a spew of blood across the highway.
That's a
And
good word for it.
Yeah, at which
It's
point
evaporated.
they Jesse and Jade get back in the car. Chucky and Tiffany are holding them at gunpoint, telling them to take off. They're driving away, and the cop car's following them. And Chucky opens the door and shoots out their tire. And now they're kind of home scot-free. They do realize they have to change wheels now because they're going to be looking for this little. Which again, I feel like this is another callback to, or not callback, but call forward, I guess, to Freddy versus Jason, where Ronnie, you must love his like. It's not an Astro van, but those bigger minivans that are painted, because this one's got like an eagle painted on the side. And then I remember in Freddy versus Jason, they have another minivan where they're getting high in, and it's like a big painting on the outside of it as well. But they end up stealing an RV, killing another couple, another off-screen kill, which was kind of, I would have liked to seen them kill this character or these two characters. Tiffany's baking cookies for Chucky.
Yeah, she's baking for him. And they're in the motorhome too, right? At this point.
Yeah, they're in the motorhome, the little RV driving down the front, and they start to now Jesse and Jade try to create a little tension between the two.
Again, another thing about like this scene that I actually I liked. I thought it was inventive. It's like, yeah, it's goofy, it's funny, but like how they like
something.
Like, well, they start the whole like, husband and wife, boyfriend girlfriend nagging thing where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
prod this one and prod that one, and they start a fight. Like, I liked that.
Yep.
I thought it was
They each kind of like feed a little bit to the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. She's like, oh wow, I forget what Oh, it starts with Jesse being like, "Oh man, I guess she's not much of a cleaner, huh?"
Yeah, not much of a housewife or something like
Yeah,
that.
and that's when Chucky kind of blasts off. It's like, "Hey, those dishes ain't gonna
They're gonna
wash
do it
themselves,
themselves.
babe." And then this causes Tiffany to start hucking plates at him. But this was the opening that our two characters, Jesse and Jade, needed. Um, they're definitely they're screaming at each other, and that's when I, I I think Jade grabs the gun and shoots a shot off, but they end up flipping the RV and just again explosives, live action stuff that they just love doing. They threw this RV down into the trees, kind of blew everything up. During it, Jade had kicked Tiffany into the oven, which was still on, and just starts baking her. So she's getting all crispy and screamy and yelly. They get out of this little mess. They're running around. They're trying to get out of it. The bride gets her way out of the oven, but she's just completely charred up. They are escaping the RV, which was like leaking gas towards exposed wires. So we knew it was only a matter of time before yet another giant explosion. Uh, Chucky is now holding Jade at gunpoint and forcing her to run towards the gravesite or the cemetery where Charles Lee Ray is buried.
For
So
whatever
we get
reason.
in there. They dig it up, or they don't even show them digging it up. They just show Jade inside the gravesite with the coffin. They open up the
Oh, well,
coffin
hold
and
on.
there's
So
like,
no, so this is one of the things I wanted to mention. Now that you bring this up.
yeah,
They're talking about what they were talking about earlier in the movie, how like they were going to exhume his body
oh yeah, just
for whatever reason.
sometime, yeah.
And when they get there, that you see the coroner's vehicle, and it's just like just one dude digging it up by hand. It's like, wait, what? Why would they send one person to dig it up by hand in the middle of the night? Like, why not do it like an excavator or something?
I did forget about that too because it was like it was on the radio and it was like a news bulletin. It's like Charles Lee Ray's body is going to be exhumed sometime tomorrow. It's like,
Yeah.
why is this an announcement? You would never hear this. They would never just put that
They
over
would never put
airways.
that- Yeah, right. We're gonna exhume the body of a mass murderer, no big
And
or like a serial killer.
sometime tomorrow. It's like,
Yeah.
well, fuck
Keep
you.
your out for more details if you want to come view the
Yeah, come watch us dig up this corpse.
And then it just happens to be some random guy in the middle of the night.
Yeah. So
Who
they
gets
get
shot.
there. Poor bastard. He's just trying to do his job. So they get there and they open it and it's just a complete skeleton with like rats because like I guess people think rats get into coffins all the time, but unless they're born in the coffin, they're not getting in. The little amulet is there, so Chucky makes Jade grab it for him. In which point, our buddy Jesse is back now with the bride doll and a little Western style, shoot off or whatever. They're holding each other at gunpoint. The bride is back. I mean, this end is just such a mess.
Yeah, the ending is really kind of like
it's ridiculous.
goofy.
They're both.
It could have ended stronger than
Yeah.
it did, but I mean, again, not that I'm sitting here expecting like Oscar magic or anything in a Chucky sequel, but it definitely, like, for as crazy as the movie, like, again, as we get to the end of the movie, like, I don't want to give my rating away yet, but I actually did have quite a lot of fun with this. It's just the ending got really like, it's like back and forth, lots of moving parts, and it was
Yeah.
kind of weird. And again, that's a stupid explanation because the whole movie.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like the ending just it felt kind of rushed. Like they didn't know how to end it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like that's what it felt like. It felt like some dude sat in his office, typed up about 80 pages of the script, and was like, "Shit, I don't know
What
how
the
to end
fuck?
this."
Oh,
So
and they're
it's
like, well, yeah, they're like, oh, well, the bride hugs Chucky, and then Jade hugs Chucky, and then the bride kills Chucky, and then Chucky takes the knife out and throws it at
Right.
Jesse, and then they hold each other at gunpoint, and then Chucky's dual wielding pistols, and then they're tied up, and it's like, okay, you just like for a movie that hasn't really done much in an hour and 20 minutes, you're trying to do a lot of weird action stuff here, but essentially it comes down to is that the bride kind of turns on Chucky, gives him one last kiss, and then I think and pushes him, stabs him in the back a bunch, and then throws
Well,
him
that's my
into.
point. So like she like the like Jesse
Oh, they have
lets
a
her
shovel fight. I forgot about the
Jesse,
shovel fight.
well, yeah. So we'll get to that. Jesse lets her go, and for whatever reason, she's like, oh, I never worked out with any of the good ones. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, first of all, like, what in that whole interaction did that like prove, like, show you that he's like just the one of the good ones, like a good guy? Like he let you go because Chucky let his girlfriend go.
Yeah.
He was doing that solely to get his girlfriend back. So what made this what about that changed her entire personality? Where before she was like, I'm in love with gore, I love murder, I love serial killers, I want to have the babies of Charles Lee Ray, who was in the body of a doll, to like suddenly being like, I'm only thinking about others now. I'm going to stop him. I'm going to stop Chucky. Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, what changed that? Was it the fight in the motorhome, and then you just kind of like, it's so weird. Like, the ending was so like this. They needed a reason for her to turn on Chucky, and they did not give me a good reason for her to turn on Chucky at all in any way.
No.
And then they do get in a shovel fight eventually.
And the shovel fight, which I love, because like they do like a close-up shot of like the puppets, and then they go to like a sky view, which is clearly like two midgets wearing the costumes, like actually like fighting with shovels, and they just try and time it up right. And it's just like clearly people wearing costumes as Chucky and the bride just hitting each other with shovels. But Chucky ends up stabbing her. Who would have thought that Chucky would have been the guy to bring a knife to a shovel fight? But
yeah, well, you know what? So the thing about the shovel fight that I think is funny, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know how you saw it, but when you're watching it, the overhead shots, which I thought were pretty, like, again, another thing about this movie that I actually kind of enjoyed was some of the shots were pretty inventive. And this is like the one thing about the whole final 15 minutes of this movie that I actually like stuck with me. Like, I remembered this is the overhead shots, and it looks like it's almost like people in suits.
It is. That's what I was just saying. It's people in costumes, fighting with shovels.
Right. So the scenes where you're up close to their faces, they're the puppets, but like in the overhead shots, they did it overhead so it looked like they were moving around and fighting, but it was really just people in Chucky and Tiffany outfits.
And I don't know if they got like really short people or like kids,
no, I just think it's the way it's shot,
or if they scaled it.
Yeah,
like the cars in the scene too. So like.
Right, so
maybe
I think
they probably just got kids.
Maybe it could just be very well just be children. But I think the way they shoot it overhead, it makes it look. It's almost like forced perspective, so it looks like they're smaller than they are, but in reality, they're just like two dudes in mascot
Chucky and bride costumes.
Right.
But yeah, it is a funny like blending of two like essentially live action and stop motion or whatever, or puppeteering. But Chucky stabs him and then gets pushed down into the grave. Well, not pushed. He gets fucking barreled with a shovel, because Jesse comes out and just gives him a good old whacking, and he lands right into the gravesite.
And then he pulls the
ladder up. And then, of course, one cop guy shows up.
Random detective who he's never been in this. The first time we see this person, he just shows up. And he looks in the hole, and what does he say? He says something like, "Oh, that was unexpected," or something like something super benign.
Just ridiculous.
It's like insane, and like he's just like right then and there, he's like, "Yep, they had nothing to do with any of it. It was all Chucky because he saw the doll."
Yeah, and it's just like
none of the murders had anything to do with these two.
My favorite is he goes like, "Oh well, nobody's ever gonna believe this,"
Right.
And then he's like. It wasn't the kids.
Them.
And he's like, yeah, you guys can go home. It's like,
what?
You're in a different state. You're in New Jersey. You can't just go home.
It's so weird.
That's not how this. You had people thought you just murdered like 6 to 8 people on this like serial killer road trip. And you two kids can just get on out of here. We'll take it from here.
You know what's funny too? It's like, and this probably goes to like all of the other movies in this whole, like everything in this universe, in this Chucky universe, it's like it's just totally normal that we have like I don't even know the word for it, but like we have talking live children's dolls like murdering people, and we're totally just like, yeah, that's normal.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a thing that happens. Like I think like early in the movie when Jesse first meets them as living dolls, he's just kind of like, okay, how did you get this way? It's
Yeah.
like not like freaking out that this doll is talking to me.
I did think that was a fun little line in there too, where he does say something like, "Oh, how'd you get to this point?" And then Chucky responds with, "Oh, well, if it was a movie, it would take at least 3
Oh
sequels
yeah,
or something like
true,
that." It's
true,
like,
true,
oh,
true.
that's
That
funny.
was that was a cool. Yeah, that's true. That's a cool line.
So yeah, we're ending with this little detective who's now poking the Tiffany doll with
I
one
know.
last
And that's like,
jump scare.
and then the funny thing is like actually there were a couple decent jump scares in this one, but that one was so like you saw that coming a mile away. You're like, yeah, eventually she's gonna do the
Yeah.
whole like I'm actually alive still, but then I'm not. Like,
But not only was she not
oh my god,
alive,
this is so stupid.
it's because she was giving birth to this little Chucky demon baby thing. As
Rosemary's Baby.
yes,
Oh no,
just
not that one.
spews blood all over this poor guy's face, and we cut to Bride of Chucky logo, and that is
And Finn.
Bride of Chucky. What did you think of this movie overall?
All right, so again, final thoughts. Not going to spend too much time on it. I don't hate this movie. Rewatching it today for the first time in a very long time. I I I mean, again, we do these killer review episodes, and it's like you have to go into all of the movies we pick with such low expectations because you're going to get disappointed if you expect anything more than what you're going to get. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Same thing with this one. Like I go into it like not expecting much of anything, and I enjoyed it. And again, you remember certain parts of it. Like I remember Jennifer Tilly's character from the first time I saw it, and I think she does a great job for what she's given. I think she's really good in this. I think most of the actors do a pretty good job. It's not like there's no awkward moments in this movie when it comes to the acting. Like they all seem to be somewhat believable characters. Outside of maybe Jesse. Jesse kind of bothers me a little bit, but then again, that's also because I think it's weird and he's robbing the cradle just a little bit. But we're not going to get into that.
But that's the one thing is we don't know if he is. I don't know how old this kid is.
We don't know how old she is. All we know is that she's under 18. That's literally the only thing we know. And again, Katherine Heigl, she does a pretty good job. Again, I think this is probably her first like big movie role. To be honest with you,
I would imagine so.
I'd have to go back and look at her IMDb to see like what she was in before this, but like it feels like that Jennifer Aniston Leprechaun thing where it's like Leprechaun is such a terribly awful movie, but like it's a cult classic type movie, and everyone remembers it being like her first big role, and she went off to stardom. And not saying Heigl has had the same career as Aniston, but again, same idea. She was in this random horror movie in the horror sequel movie in the 90s, and suddenly isn't a whole bunch of other things like Grey's Anatomy was the biggest thing. But yeah, overall, I don't think it was terrible. I think it's weird, but again, as long as the movie can kind of like give me the impression that they know what they're doing, like it's totally tongue in cheek and wink wink, like we get it, that's fine with me. It's when the movie tries too hard to be serious or be taken serious, and it's clearly not being taken serious in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know. I enjoyed it. I didn't hate it. I just the ending just felt tacked on. Like it felt like they didn't know what to do with it in the last 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, and kind of just threw something together to make it end.
Oh, it absolutely was thrown together. I mean, it's a fun movie. It's not a good movie. It's a fun movie. If you're ever like in the mood for one of those like this is like 2000s horror. This is like that weird like, middle ground. Like we were coming out of like 80s slashers, and we were trying to switch up the horror genre. We didn't get to that like next level horror until those mid to late 2010s.
And I'm wearing the T-shirt. I wanted, if we were actually on camera, you could see what I'm talking about. But I'm wearing the slasher T-shirt, and it's Ghostface. And every movie post Scream was, at least for a while, like in the late 90s, mid 2000s, like that whole time period where we're all just trying to be the next Scream.
Yeah.
And I think where this movie was like, yeah, we're gonna do that, but we're not gonna be serious with it. Like we're gonna make it haha funny, and we want you to know that it's gonna be that way. So that's why this movie works. Where a lot of movies that are trying to be Scream, but trying to be like not tongue in cheek, like we're gonna be serious and we're gonna do the same thing Scream did, where Scream was like we're gonna lampoon the genre, but not do it so much as a comedy, but as like a deconstruction of the horror genre.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of
Yeah.
movies tried to pull that theme, and obviously it doesn't work because it's like, can only really be done once, and then everything else is just a copy of it. So you have to find a way to make it unique. And this movie, for as stupid as it is, like at least somewhat made it unique for the time period, I guess.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
it was
this
kind of like
time-
the first, like, I don't want to say it's the first time that anybody really did like a comedy horror type movie, but like I think it was one of the first times where they took like an established character, especially in the slasher genre, and was like, we're just gonna lampoon this character. We don't, because think about it, like there's got to be like a hardcore group of fans out there that like love Child's Play and just adore the character, and to do that to him was kind of bold in a way,
Yeah.
because they knew they were gonna piss off people. Like they had to know they
Mhm.
were gonna like piss off half the community that like, enjoys those movies. So I think that's bold, and I give points, or I award points to boldness. So
Yeah. It was fun. That's one thing I can definitely say about this. If you're ever in that mood for like those early to mid 2000s just ridiculous like horror style movies, we talked about like Final Destination. Obviously it must have pulled a little bit something from this, but it's that feeling. This movie has that written all over it. So let's get into our fear and beer ratings. Obviously we haven't done this in a little bit, so a little refresher. Our fear rating is how scary we think this is on a scale of 1 through 5, and then our beer rating is how much we enjoyed this movie on a scale of 1 through 5. So I'll kick off our fear rating. For me, this was a 0. For me, there was no scares in this for me.
Do you want me to give you a spoiler?
Yeah.
Mine is also 0.
Yeah, that's I mean, I kind of expected it.
It's
There's
not a
nothing
scary
here.
movie, and I don't think
No.
I don't think you have to. I don't think you watch this expecting to be scared. I think you watch this
No.
expecting to just. It's one of those movies where like
Time movie. That's all it is. It's a good
right,
time movie.
you throw it on with a bunch of friends, you grab some drinks and popcorn, and you just laugh the whole time. That's kind of the whole point of this movie. What this is showing me though is you and I need to start picking some like we have
Scary, yeah.
we have a fear rating, and I don't think anything we've watched has been
Really
over like
used it.
3.
Yeah. We can maybe next month we'll. No, I do have a good movie that we should check out. I haven't watched it yet. We'll allude to that at the end.
Okay, I'll let you save that for the end.
But so let's go then to our beer ratings, or how much we enjoy this. I'll give this a 3. It's a little over the halfway mark. It's definitely not up there with some of my favorites and stuff like that, but it's fun. I didn't not enjoy myself. This, like I said, I think it would be more enjoyable in a group setting, but it's just a fun, quick movie. It's in and out. It's harmless. It's under, and after the credits roll, it still sits in at under 90 minutes. Like,
and that's again one of the better parts about this movie is it doesn't waste time. Like it gets right to the point. And I say this a lot on these killer review episodes, where like a movie generally will do better with me if it doesn't waste too much time. If it's a movie, I say that because I'm also a slow burn snob who loves movies that are slow burns. But if you're gonna be a slow burn, you have to earn it. Like you can't be bad. If you're bad and you're a slow burn, I'm gonna turn you off. But like if you're a slow burn and you've hooked me into the story, different thing. Like this movie is not supposed to be a slow burn. This movie,
and that's the thing is, you have to know what you are. Like those slow burns. Like if it's elevated and it knows what it is and it does it well, that's fine. If this movie was 2.5 hours or 2:20,
oh my god, can you imagine?
I would. This movie would be a 0.
2.5 hours of
Bride of
fun.
Chucky.
Oh god.
Yeah. So where do you put this for your beer rating?
See, this is the problem. Is like I'm forgetting like what I've rated other movies, so I feel like I'm gonna give this. So I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna give it a 4, even though I really did kind of have fun with it. I'm gonna give it a 3.5, just to be a little different. But 3.5 out of 5, I think, is more than enough for this movie. like you said, it's fun, it's enjoyable. Not one I'd probably watch by myself again. Like, I don't think it's a movie that like you watch alone. I think it's one of those
No,
movies
but
that,
I'll show
again,
it off to people.
right, you watch in a party setting or with just a group of people, like, or if you're having one of those like, hey, let's all get together and watch bad movies together. And this is one of the ones you would potentially
It's on the
suggest.
list.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. All right, well, that brings us to what I was talking about. This won't be an episode for next week, but there's a new movie out on Shudder called Skinamarink. I've seen a lot of people talk about
Oh,
it.
I've heard things.
It was in
I've never
theaters.
seen
It was in theaters quickly, but it just came to Shudder on February 1st.
Is it a
so I'd be
foreign movie or
interested.
is it an American movie?
I think it's an American movie. I think
it?
it's very indie.
Yeah,
I've seen
probably. I mean, most of
I've
Shudder
seen
stuff is-
reviews saying it's the greatest thing, and I've seen reviews saying it's just a waste of time.
I feel like, you know what
I'm
though?
curious.
I feel like every low budget indie kind of coming out of left field horror movie always has those reviews where it's like half the community, like half the review base, like
Mhm.
loves it, like adores it, and then the other half thinks it's trash. So it's like,
Yeah,
it could go either way. It sounds like a movie that I would like because I like those weird movies, but I've never heard of it. And I don't say that. I've never heard much about it other than what I've seen on like Twitter. That's what like mentions of it, but I've never really read a review or seen anything about it or watched any videos on it. So I have no idea what it is at all.
I mean, even if you watch the trailer, it doesn't tell you much. Like I've seen
I'll
the
have to
trailer, and I
watch
have
the
no idea
trailer
what it's
then.
about. So I think maybe that'll be something on the docket for next month, and
We should
we'll see
consider
if
it.
we can crank those fear ratings up. As far as next week, I'm not sure if we will have an episode next week. I'll be out
You're
of
on a
town
cruise,
on
you're on a boat.
vacation until Thursday morning. So if we somehow get something to talk about Thursday night, maybe we'll jump on and pump something out. But we probably won't be too active on the socials. I will be MIA, cruising, gambling, all that fun stuff. But we'll get something back to you pretty quickly. But until next time, this is Nick.
And this is Seamus.
Happy Chucky.
Cursed. It's got a death curse.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare.
And again, I would just like to thank Vampire Stepdad for letting us use his music for our intro and outro music. So if you would, just go check him out. Spotify, Facebook. Again, that is Vampire Stepdad.